undergraduate degree. So Mayor Shultz, I'll ask you to get us started.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you to the college and all involved in putting this program together, this symposium together. I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of, more recent history of environmental activism more broadly in Carlisle. Going back to 2005, when Cumberland County was non-attainment for particulate matter, primarily because of the diesel fuels, the transportation coming through this county. The Clean Air Board of Central Pennsylvania organized here in Carlisle to advocate to improve air quality in the region after area doctors had placed an ad in newspapers raising awareness of the medical consequences of high levels of particulate matter in our air. And that we have progressed over the years and continued to recognize the local impacts of environmental issues. We're a borough of about 20,000 people. We have about a 16% poverty rate in Carlisle, very diverse demographics here in the borough. But I think what is happening and has been happening especially over the last decade or so, is that residents are coming to realize the effects of climate change. The effects of the increased precipitation and greater intensity of storm events in particular that are occurring in northeast United States. We're an older borough. We were built out well before many stormwater management ordinances were put into effect, and we've seen increased flooding events and property damage and residents put into danger during some of these intense storm events in the borough. We're also in an area that has a lot of karst topography, which along with that brings increased sinkholes due to these intense rain events, and our residents are seeing the effects of that. So our residents and our leaders here in Carlisle have become more acutely aware of how these global issues affect us very locally. Now, as a local government in Pennsylvania, we have some obstacles to overcome. One, we're a very small piece of this puzzle in a state of over 2,500 local governments. Municipalities that tend to have greater political will to deal with these issues also tend to be the ones that are more urban, have tax base growth issues and socioeconomic impediments that limit funding available to implement local solutions. There are also limits to our jurisdiction and legal authority. We are preempted, for instance, from most regulation of utilities, and the state legislature has, over the past several years, on several occasions, sought to further limit municipal authority, such as prohibiting us for a period of time from banning single-use plastic bags, and more recently considering preempting municipalities' attempts to curb the use of fossil fuel energy choices in new residential, commercial, and industrial developments. So there are some obstacles for us to overcome. Luckily, we had a partnership with Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, ICLE, and Dickinson College through the local Climate Action program. And we developed a greenhouse gas inventory that then eventually led to a climate action plan that we passed just earlier this year. So our greenhouse gas inventory showed us that we have the greatest greenhouse gas emissions from commercial and industrial energy, about half of our emissions. Then that's followed by transportation, which is a little less than 30%, and then residential energy. That's a little less than 20% of our emissions. The Climate Action Plan passed in January of this year with the goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions from 2005 emission levels by 26% by 2025 and by 80% by 2050. How are we going to achieve that? One, we have a great deal of logistics and warehousing in this region. It's one of our most significant industries in the area. And so there's an opportunity with those vast rooftops to increase efficiency and solar potential by increasing solar installations and green rooftop modifications. We can also establish energy use intensity benchmarks and green building standards in our subdivision and land development ordinances for new developments, both commercial and residential. We'll also have an opportunity in a borough that has very old housing stock to increase energy efficiency. That's some low-hanging fruit. We will improve weatherization of the buildings that our residents live in every day. We're going to work toward electrification of heating and cooling. Approximately 60% of households in Carlisle use fossil fuels, and if we can switch 50% of them by 2035 and 80% by 2050, we'll be well along our way. We also need to educate our residents on PA Power Switch, which allows them to choose renewable generation providers for their electricity, and also to reduce the heat island effect that we have in an urban area like this. Simple things like increased tree planting in the borough. Transportation is more of a challenge. We have limited direct control. We plan to work on incentives for electric and alternative fuel vehicles. We are working right now on getting EV charging stations in place to meet future needs. We're also getting our municipal house in order and doing our own greenhouse gas inventory. So I believe we're going to overcome some of these obstacles. Although we're a small piece of the puzzle, we have our own part to do. There is a greater need for state and federal action, investing in decarbonization and conversion of the electric grid from fossil fuel use. The energy sector and transportation emissions are regulated both at the state level and federal levels. Now, these efforts could have the benefit of reducing our reliance on foreign supply that sometimes competes with our other national interests. We also need to meet the fiscal needs. We need the state and federal government to help meet the fiscal needs of local governments. And so I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to overcome these obstacles. We seem to have reached a tipping point in public opinion, and I believe our residents here in Carlisle have recognized where we're headed and the action that we must take.
All right. Thank you very much.